Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ventures. And for those in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope your summer has been going well. I was actually able to take 12 days off grid myself personally this summer for some much needed reflection and relaxation and recreation. And that was the longest I've been off grid since probably the 90s, since the dawn of the internet getting more of a thing in the 90s. So I've had a lot of time just to think about, why I enjoy investing in early stage founders, really idea to seed stage founders, the process that my partners and I use to invest time, to invest capital, to bring together a crew of resources to be able to help enable founders to flourish is a huge part of what we do. So I have a lot that I'm excited to share in this sort of second season of the Ventures podcast with you. And this is episode 57. If those of you who have been following along, thank you for listening. I'd love to hear from you. Just shoot me a quick note at will@wclittle.com. And I'd love to hear what your thoughts about the show, different directions that you think that we should take the content. And so again, my email address is will@wclittle.com. So today I just have a short clip from one of my conversations with Andrew Cronk in episode 48. And I'm pulling this clip out because I've been thinking a lot, my partners and I have been thinking a lot about what will Web3 software development look like. As a software developer myself, I think a lot, especially when I'm building for web or mobile, I'm thinking a lot about a data store, the privacy of that, the scalability of that data store, how I'm going to track users' identity, how the application is going to flow. Well, in the Web3 era, where content is put on chain, where there's self-sovereign identity, the nuances of this world are going to be different. And so I'm excited to share this very important clip with Andrew Cronk with you. So if you're listening, you can also watch by visiting wclittle.com, and there I'll have more extensive show notes to the specific topic that we talk about today. And if you're watching, you can also listen anywhere that you get your podcast. You can just search for Ventures. So with that, please enjoy this clip from episode 48 with Andrew Cronk. Because then decentralized application developers are going to have to figure out some way to replicate the database, right? The SQL equivalent in order to query this data effectively. Is there ways right now that people are working on that, or in terms of?
Yes. I'm really glad you asked. So there's a few projects that are working on this, and I think I'll just share this in the show notes, but there's a few different projects which are building on top of IPFS and doing this, and there's a few different projects which are building on different storage systems. But the short answer is yes. I think the relational database is obviously a great invention, and recreating it in a key value store is something we tried to do in the original big data wave, and we realized actually we just want SQL interfaces on top of this. And so I think in my mind, SQL interfaces are here to stay. Nobody wants to develop on top of KV stores. But what we have right now is essentially we're back to KV stores in crypto world. And so I'll share links to a couple of of databases which are sort of taking this more like relational, or at least having a SQL interface approach. But yeah, that's sort of where we are in the market right now.
That's exciting, because those are those pieces. Yeah. Some kind of querying and structured data, a place to actually store that data, and a way to deal with identity. If you have those three pieces, we can start recreating all these Web 2.0 applications on chain and get more data on chain, get more people familiar with it, get more developers on it. And that's very exciting. So that's cool. I'm excited to get and put all that information in the show notes. And I'm excited to tinker it with myself this summer. That'll be fun.
So what I would say is the one nuance here is where your application logic runs. And so I don't mean to be sort of pedantic about it, but the one way to think about smart contracts is it's much more like the serverless paradigm than I'm deploying my app onto EC2. And a way to think about a smart contract is just like serverless, right? You execute functions which need to execute in some sort of finite amount of time, and then you store the results of some store, which you can kind of pull back from later. And so I don't think it's as simple as now I have my Ruby and Rails app in Web3. I think it's much more around we have to take some of what's available with smart contracts. And really, if you try to do anything on like AWS Lambda or any of these sort of function-based systems, it's a different approach. And so I think that's going to have to be one nuance. Is I don't think we're going to have like Rails for blockchain, but we will have something that could be like sort of Lambda for blockchain.
All right, a couple quick things before you go. Number one, I have a general newsletter where I write about technology and startups and health science and teaching people to code. And I write about a variety of different subjects that we talk about on this show. So if you go to wclittle.com, there you'll be able to subscribe, and you'll also be able to subscribe to particular topics. If you're just interested in one or a few of them, you'll be notified right when I publish new content in those areas. Number two, my partners and I at Proto Ventures have a portfolio company called Startup Rocket. If you go to startuprocket.com, there you'll be able to receive coaching guides and customize an operations framework for you and your team and your advisors to be on the same page in terms of what is the appropriate next step for you in your entrepreneurial journey. And finally, if you wouldn't mind leaving a review anywhere that you have listened to this podcast or watched this podcast, it'd be super helpful to help those who might be interested in consuming this content as well. Thank you.